Welcome back to Whispered Firelight Stories. The fire's low tonight, and the dark's listening. This one's called When the Boo Daddy Comes.
They say the Boo Daddy don't come for the wicked. He comes for the ones who meant to do right, but didn't. Eli Granger had lived with that kind of mistake for 3 years. A promise broken by accident, but heavy enough to keep him awake most nights. He and his best mate, Thomas Reed, had been hunting the back roads since they were kids. They'd fished the same creeks, fixed the same busted cars, even dated sisters once. They were the kind of friends who didn't need to talk to understand. On a storm-soaked Friday, Thomas called for a ride home from the mill, said his truck wouldn't start, and the river was rising fast. Eli was halfway through a six-pack and said he'd come after one more beer. That one more turned into 3, and by the time he finally grabbed his keys, the thunder was close enough to shake the windows. He drove fast, tires slicing through standing water, wipers barely keeping up. When he reached the bridge, the rain had turned it into a river. Wood planks bowed under the current, the guardrail half gone. Headlights shimmered on the far side. Thomas's truck tilted nose down against the rail. Eli called his name, but the wind swallowed the sound. He waded in up to his knees before the current took his footing. When he clawed back to the bank, all that was left was a shattered headlight drifting downstream and the echo of his own voice. He told the deputies it was the storm, told himself it was fate. But every time he closed his eyes, he still saw that broken light spinning in the dark water, and the hand he didn't grab in time. The insurance money ran out quick. He sold his share of the garage, packed up, and drove south until the road stopped having names. Now he lived on the edge of Bayou Verne, in a trailer half swallowed by reeds. The nights there had weight. Even the frogs went quiet sometimes, like the swamp itself was listening. He worked odd jobs, fixing outboard motors, patching roofs, and drank through the silence that followed. Folks in town nodded polite but didn't ask much. Everyone knew grief when they saw it. Still, gossip traveled like humidity. He'd hear it whispered at the bar. He was supposed to pick him up that night. Wouldn't be right, living alone after something like that. He hadn't dreamed much since the funeral, but lately sleep had turned strange, a thick, heavy kind of half-dream where he'd wake but couldn't move. At first, he thought it was just the beer or the heat. Then came the whispering. It started small, his name drawn out under his breath. Eli? He'd lie there, eyes open, heart stuttering, staring at the ceiling fan that never quite turned. He'd tell himself he was dreaming, but the voice always answered back, closer the next night. Old man Dupree at the bait shop noticed the circles under his eyes. "You're looking rode hard," the old man said. Eli shrugged. "Just can't sleep." Dupree nodded slow. "You break a promise, boy." Eli went still. "What kind of question's that?" The old man spat. "Only kind that matters. Folks round here don't forget the Boo Daddy." Eli laughed it off, but his hands were shaking when he paid. That night, the air inside the trailer pressed heavy as wet wool. The storm had passed, but thunder still rolled somewhere deep. Eli lay down, the fan ticking overhead. He told himself he'd stay awake, but the dark had other plans. He woke to silence. No wind, no frogs, no rain. Only the hum of blood in his ears. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe right. His body felt pinned, chest tight like something sat on him. Out of the corner of his eye, the hallway light flickered. A shadow stretched long across the floor, taller than a man, shoulders too broad, head bowed like it had to duck beneath the doorframe. It moved wrong. Slow, liquid, like smoke, learning how to walk. The pressure on his chest deepened. The smell of creek water and rust filled the room. The thing's outline reached the foot of the bed and stopped. He couldn't see its face, but when it leaned forward, the air grew cold enough to hurt. "You left him waitin', Eli." The voice was a rasp, part wind, part memory. His best friend's words twisted through it. "You said you'd come, but you didn't." He tried to speak, to say he was sorry, but his mouth wouldn't open. Only his eyes moved, darting toward the nightstand where Thomas's old pocketknife lay. The Boo Daddy followed his gaze. The grin it made was too wide to belong to anything human. "You kept the blade," it said, "but not the promise." The shadow bent closer until its shape blotted out the world. He felt its breath, cold, wet, wrong. It smelled of diesel and river mud. Something cold touched his throat. then nothing. When Eli woke, the sun was bleeding through the blinds. His chest ached, ribs sore like someone had knelt on him. The knife was gone. In its place lay a wet handprint, dark and wide, like someone had pressed up from the inside of the earth. He didn't tell anyone. He tried to burn the bedsheets that night, but the lighter wouldn't catch. The smell of creek water clung to him for days. After that, folks in town saw him less. He stopped showing up for work, stopped answering calls. Only Dupree said he'd come by one afternoon, pale as paper, asking about prayers that keep the dark things out. Dupree told him, "The Boo Daddy don't listen to prayers, he listens to guilt." That night, a storm rolled in again. Neighbors said they saw lightning hit somewhere near the swamp road. When the rain cleared, the trailer was dark. No sound but the frogs. Deputy Carver found the place 2 days later. No sign of Eli Granger. Just damp footprints leading from the bed to the door, and one long drag mark across the floor, ending at the threshold. The door was still locked from the inside. Old man Dupree told it quiet over beer a week later. Said the Boo Daddy comes for oath-breakers, but he don't kill. He just takes what's owed, the breath they wasted, the words they swallowed. Some nights, when the wind shifts over the bayou, Dupree swears he hears two voices out there, one deep, one trembling. Like a man trying to explain himself to the dark. Maybe it's just frogs, maybe it ain't. Either way, if you're ever lying awake and feel something watching from the foot of your bed, don't speak, don't look. And for God's sake, don't make promises you can't keep. Because when the Boo Daddy comes, he always comes to collect.
That was When the Boo Daddy Comes. If the fire's still warm where you are, stay a little longer. And if you want more nights like this, hit like, subscribe, and come back to the circle. There are always more stories waiting in the dark, here at Whispered Firelight Stories.